So this next piece is, in a way, an accompaniment to the last. I've kind of always felt that the hooded sweatshirt was the garment of my generation. And when I was asked to tie significance or emotion to an inanimate object, I thought, what better way to tie common experience than through an article of clothing that seems almost universally owned by most of the people I know. So this poem is entitled Hoodie, and this is for someone who's not with us anymore. I wore that hoodie for 5 years. I wore it with the hood up always, because it hid my face, because it hid my size. I wore it like a Kevlar vest. I wore it so people would cross the street when we clogged the sidewalk. I wore it because where I come from, the winters are cold, and the wind burrows into the dark suburb streets where there's nothing else to do but wander. I wore that hoodie through deep, humid summer nights when AC controlled the inside world and we ruled everything else. I wore it behind and on the side of buildings, but never out front. I wore it for 5 years and it aged with me. I wore that hoodie until the elastic unwound itself and the cotton frayed out from all the holes I burned while hiding cigarettes up my sleeve, until the strings fell out and folded themselves somewhere into the dirt of my town. I wore that hoodie with the lingering scent of girls I let steal it just so I could steal it back. I wore that hoodie beyond its use as a layer. I wore that hoodie because I lived by the parkway, because I didn't have a canal in my backyard, to set myself in opposition to the badged and bullhorning who only ask questions after your mouth is full of blood and you can't speak. I wore it to swear my alliances. I wore it over old white t-shirts, because I always walked in sneakers, because I shaved my head. I wore it with the sleeves drawn over my knuckles so no one would ask questions. I wore that hoodie the day a friend finally surfaced, dressed in black vinyl in a sterile tiled room. I wore that hoodie as it absorbed his mother's tears, absorbed all the rage he could only release in one way. I wore that hoodie over soft earth and under cold rain. I wore that hoodie the first and only time I ever let my jaw fracture. I wore that hoodie in smug defiance. I wore that hoodie in the company of kings. I wore that hoodie because I was old enough to know where I stood, because I was already too old to grow out of it. I wore that hoodie the day I said I was done with school for good. I wore that hoodie because my father is a carpenter and my mother is in the local 1500. I wore that hoodie and now it's gone and I'll never find it. I wore that hoodie that took all my beatings until my skin grew hard. I wore it to filter the world through black cotton weave. I wore that hoodie until I could do it on my own.